Christmas night, 1925. Inside the Adonis Social Club in South Brooklyn, the holiday celebration ends in brutal gunfire. When the smoke clears on the dance floor, gang leader Richard Lonergan lies dead. He and his men had walked in, hurled ethnic slurs at the Italian patrons, demanding the local women find white men to escort them. The response was immediate and fatal. Lonergan and his predecessor, Bill Lovett, were the muscle behind the White Hand Gang. This was an Irish-American syndicate that built its entire identity around fighting the Sicilian Black Hand. Their stated goal was to keep the Brooklyn waterfront under strict white control. This was the reality of the Red Hook neighborhood in the 1920s. It was a dense, working-class shipping hub defined by bitter turf wars, where rapidly shifting immigrant populations collided block by block. The violence over bootlegging and dockwork carried a sharp ideological edge. The White Hand operated as a brutal enforcement arm for racial segregation, ensuring newly arriving immigrants understood their place. The streets of Red Hook were indeed patrolled by dangerous forces, but they were flesh and blood men in fedoras, using bullets and blades to violently maintain the ethnic borders of their neighborhood. Living just a short walk away from this very real bloodshed was a deeply impoverished writer from Rhode Island, H.P. Lovecraft. He looked out at the exact same Brooklyn streets, but what terrified him wasn't gunfire. His preserved letters show zero concern for organized crime. Instead, Lovecraft experienced genuine, consuming panic simply looking at the diverse, multicultural crowds around him. He described the neighborhood as a polyglot abyss, horrified that people of different backgrounds were living, working, and speaking near him. He was directing this immense dread at everyday people, largely Syrian, Italian, and Eastern European immigrants. They were standing in processing lines, looking for factory work and trying to build lives in a new country. Lovecraft's deep-seated xenophobia effectively blinded him. He completely ignored the verifiable threat of racist street gangs, choosing instead to look at marginalized families and imagine a supernatural, terrifying infection. In the summer of 1925, he channeled that exact fear into a short story called The Horror at Red Hook. To fight the horrors of Brooklyn, Lovecraft invents a protagonist named Thomas Malone. Rather than reflecting the real, violent Irish mobsters controlling the docks, Malone is an idealized, highly educated Irish police detective battling an occult threat. And that threat is highly specific. Malone investigates a massive underground cult made up of Kurds, Syrians, and Asian immigrants practicing dark, ancient magic in the neighborhood slums. At the center of this conspiracy is Robert Soudum, a wealthy white Dutch scholar. Soudum acts as the ultimate traitor to his race, using his resources to finance and organize these immigrant cults to summon an elder god. Lovecraft takes the genuine ethnic malice of the era and flips the targets. He validates the fears of groups like the White Hand by writing the immigrant population as a literal demonic invasion that must be eradicated. In this mythology, non-white immigrants don't even need to commit a crime to be dangerous. Their mere presence, and the presence of any white person who associates with them, is framed as a monstrous corruption that will inevitably destroy society. For decades, literary critics praised The Horror at Red Hook as a foundational piece of weird fiction. The virulent racism driving the plot was usually brushed aside as an unfortunate product of the 1920s. But modern authors and critics are taking a different approach. Rather than separating the art from the artist, they are metabolizing Lovecraft. That means ingesting the work whole, explicitly confronting the racism baked into the text, and dismantling it from the inside. Author Victor LaValle, who grew up in Queens, executed this perfectly with his 2016 novella, The Ballad of Black Tom. LaValle performs a brilliant counterattack. He keeps the exact same plot points and timeline of Lovecraft's original story, but he shifts the perspective. By changing who holds the camera, he exposes the fatal flaws in the original worldview. The new narrator is Tommy Tester, a black hustler and street musician from Harlem who gets recruited to play guitar for the wealthy scholar Robert Soudum. Through Tommy's eyes, the cosmic gods and immigrant cults are the least of his worries. The actual, daily sources of dread are Detective Malone, the violent white power structures, and the systemic bigotry of New York. Lovecraft wrote about the overlapping languages and sounds of Red Hook as a terrifying, demonic noise. LaValle reframes that exact same street clamor as the sound of a vibrant, joyful community simply trying to survive under heavy oppression. Pushed to the breaking point by a hostile society, Tommy eventually takes over the dark ritual himself, becoming the monster known as Black Tom. He actively chooses cosmic horror because it grants him the power to become untouchable to the white society that marginalizes him. Fiction has a way of correcting the historical record. The real threats on the 1920s waterfront were never ancient magic or immigrant populations. They were the people enforcing ethnic divisions with violence. By tracking how prejudice builds our darkest mythologies, we can learn exactly how to dismantle them.